If you liked the old Kyrie models that had that really exaggerated rounded outsole, then you're gonna like these a lot. What's up guys? Welcome back to another WearTesters performance review. My name is Jackson. Today we're talking about the Wade Shadow 4. They're really targeting fans of the Kyrie line with this model. Specifically the older models like the Kyrie 2 through the 4. These fit in really nicely with those silhouettes, although this has something that those older Kyrie models didn't have, and that's cushion. So the cushion is my favorite aspect of the shoe. So what you have is a full-length cloud foam setup that actually acts as a carrier for the boom cushion that is isolated in the forefoot. If you're unfamiliar with those foams, cloud foam is a fairly basic EVA. Feels a little bit like Lunar Lawn, while boom is Li-Ning's version of an ETPU based foam setup, a lot like Boost. Even if this cushion setup was just the cloud foam all the way through, I would have been pretty satisfied with it. While it's not plush, it is pretty light and it compresses a little bit, and so it is fairly comfortable underneath your foot. But the addition of the boom in the forefoot is where things get even better. Having that boom isolated to the forefoot, it's gonna feel a little bit subdued compared to models where it's full length, like the Way of Wade 10 or the All City 11, but it still provides a little bit of a bounce back, and it does provide really nice impact protection up there in the forefoot. So impact protection, especially on a shoe like this that's probably catered a little more towards guards, it's really nice. As for court feel, you're not gonna feel exactly like you did, say, on the Kyrie 2, because that shoe didn't have any cushion. On those, you were right on top of the floor. On these, you gotta have a little bit of room for the boom.
Hip hip!
So, you are sacrificing a little bit of court feel to get some impact protection in there, but that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make all day. The insoles in here are actually pretty nice. It's actually fairly thick. The foam does have some, density to it. It's not just an open cell ortholite type insole that, you play in them twice and they feel bottomed out already. So while the cushion was my favorite aspect of the shoe, let's take a look at the traction. The outsole features a herringbone type pattern. It's featured diagonally, going in all different directions. Like I've mentioned earlier, the outsole is rounded, and that pattern does wrap up around the medial side of the forefoot, which it only makes sense that you would do that because with a rounded outsole, you're catering to players who kind of do want to roll up onto the side of their foot a little bit, get a little shifty. The issue that I have with the Shadow 4's traction is that the rubber grooves themselves are pretty flat and they do pick up a good amount of dust. So if I was on the nastiest of the nasty courts,
that's nasty,
I'd find myself not being totally confident in the movements that I'm making, not totally confident in the traction. The cleaner the court, the better. If you're working with a ton of dust, there are probably better options out there traction-wise. One big positive about the traction and the outsole is that it is really durable. So if you wanted an outdoor shoe, not only is the cushion gonna be good enough to hold up outside, the traction is as well. Moving on to the materials, the Way of Wade website calls this material setup the Ultra Shell, which is knitted with high performance plastic. What they really mean is it's pretty much a hyperfuse type setup. And of course there are positives to that. The upper material is really durable. There are a lot of perforations in there with open mesh, so it's gonna be nice and breathable. Again, those are both really good characteristics for an outdoor basketball shoe. This stuff is pretty thin, and so once you really start to break it in, it does start to flex pretty well. I didn't experience any pinching or any weird flex points, nothing painful. While this isn't my favorite type of setup, I'd much more prefer a knit or an engineered mesh or a leather or a synthetic leather. This stuff works. And I know that there are a lot of you out there who do prefer a more fusey type setup, and so this is gonna be right up your alley. This is going to be a pretty good use of a plastic-based material. There is a half booty within the shoe connecting to the tongue, and it's made of a really nice stretchy mesh material. It allows for good breathability, both from the tongue area and as well as all those perforations around the upper. That material is backing those perforations, and it still allows for a ton of airflow. And lace pressure was not an issue either. So there's some good, there's some not as good with the materials, but overall they work, so I can't really complain. Now moving on to the fit, the Shadow 4 fits fits true to size pretty much all the way through. If anything, they might be a little bit narrow in the midfoot area, but unless you have wide feet, I would go true to size. You also do sit within the midsole pretty considerably, especially on that lateral side. So the containment side to side was really good. And being locked in there by the midsole meant that you weren't going to ever slide over the footbed, and that's just something that you don't have to worry about. The Shadow 4 also has really good heel lockdown. Does a really good job of just locking your heel into place. You can really just lace these things up and go. And you don't have to worry about the fit, and you don't have to worry about the support either. On a shoe that has this much curvature on the outsole, what you're not getting is a flat, stable base. So sometimes on a shoe like this, support might be sacrificed. But luckily the Shadow 4 does a great job making up for that basically in every other area, making these actually a really nice stable shoe. You have an internal heel counter locking things down in the back. You have what they're calling the midfoot pro bar lock system, which is this plastic piece right here, which extends underneath the shoe and onto the other side of the midfoot. So that's your torsion support. That's what's keeping the shoe from flexing in all the wrong places. Now, the absolute star of the support show is this little outrigger piece up here in the forefoot. Obviously, when you have a rounded edge on the outsole, you can't put a traditional outrigger on the outsole. So what Way of Wade did is they just put one here in the midsole, this little plastic piece right here, and it does a great job of maintaining stability and keeping you from rolling over on the lateral side of the shoe. You do see it in other shoes as well, like the All City 11, and I think that's something that any shoe should have if you don't have that outrigger along the outsole. I have zero complaints about the support, and I'm actually kind of surprised at how nice and stable the shoe is considering its shape. So hey, overall, I really did enjoy the Shadow 4. I think this is a shoe that's gonna perform even better outdoors than it does indoors. My biggest complaint was the traction performance when I had it on a really dusty court, but the overall durability was great. The cushion was awesome, especially on a shoe that clearly looks like it's more oriented for guards. The fit was good, the support was good, the materials were not my cup of tea, but they still worked. This is a shoe that's gonna be catered towards a very specific kind of player. You know, not everybody loves this. On a shoe with this many, you know, rounded edges, the heel to toe transition was just kind of pedestrian. I think that's mostly due to the fact that you have a chunkier midsole that's there obviously to help with the stability, but I think that does come at a slight cost of, you know, a smooth heel to toe transition, which is what you would normally associate with a shoe, you know, sloped like this. But that's a nitpick. Overall, I did enjoy my time in the Shadow 4s, and these are actually pretty lightweight as well. They weigh in my size 12, they're about a ½ an ounce lighter actually than the Wade 808 V2, which obviously is a low profile, you know, sleek, low to the ground shoe. So for these to weigh in lighter than that is actually pretty impressive. But that's about all I've got for the performance review on the Wade Shadow 4. Overall, this is just another really solid performer from what is, for my money, the most consistent performance basketball shoe brand right now, Way of Wade. You've really got something for everybody, whether that's, you know, the Way of Wade 10 or the All City 11, two just kind of all around great shoes. And you know, these are obviously kind of mimicking the Kobe line as well as the Kyrie line. That's why it's a niche performer. That's an area right now that was kind of left vacant by the Kyrie line. And so Way of Wade is doing something pretty smart and filling that need for the people who really want it. If you've played in these, sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you think about them. But that's all I've got. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace and much love to you.